duties to the best of our judgment and ability, the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. The Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and the waters, the Ngarrindjeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country, pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you. Councillors, first item is apologies, and at this stage I understand Councillor Rountree is an apology. Acknowledgements. I'd just like to acknowledge, as you know, I wasn't here the last couple of meetings, the leaving or departure of Matt James, our then Director of Roads and Infrastructure for over 2 years, and he certainly was not afraid of boring in and doing a lot of technical work and policy work and that, and I wish Matt well publicly in his new role, and I understand in the private enterprise. I thank him very much for his time with us. Item 3, declarations of conflict of interest. Does anyone have any of them to declare today? None. Item 4, confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting, including the confidential minutes held on the 15th of August. Councillor Bland, you're moving. Don't rush me. I'm back. Councillor Coleman, thank you. You're the seconder. Is there any debate? Councillors, discussion around their accuracy? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 5, adjourned business. The number 1 of that is review of the delegations register. There is a recommendation, councillors, which you'd be aware is very large scenario.
Mayor, can I move to suspend meeting procedures, just have a quick discussion around this?
Move that way, yes. You need us. Yes. I'd probably just look for a seconder if we've just moved. Councillor Bland and is the seconder, and Councillor Peach is the first. Is everyone in favour for 10 minutes? Is enough? Up to 10 minutes. All those in favour? I've got most hands. Councillor Arthur, are you, is that a yes or a no? It moves for 10 minutes to suspend meeting procedure. Is carried unanimously, and we have got Natasha from, oh, I nearly said the wrong company. Kelly Jones joining us on the screen, councillors, but you can see her, I can't. Councillor Peach, since we're in suspension for 10 minutes, yes.
Just a couple of things. I've got 5 parts of this I'd like to touch on, but I'd first like to note that where it does say feedback is unsubstantiated in every single response, I do appreciate the fact that some of the concerns have been picked up and noted in the new delegations.
We have a little technical feedback. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do, Ashley?
Sorry, I should ask through the mayor, was there a question directed at me, because I think I dropped out for a moment there?
There was not quite.
Natasha, can you hear the feedback?
I can't hear the feedback. No, have you got it at your end?
We've got some issues with the audio.
Okay, you're coming really clear on my end.
Has it stopped? Yeah.
Natasha, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
We fixed the audio, so that's fine. We can kick off again.
Perfect.
Go back to councillor Peach's first question to you, Natasha.
Sorry, so the first part was saying that noting that feedback is unsubstantiated was the recommendation to most of the queries I raised. However, a number of them have been modified and addressed in the delegations under conditions and limitations. So I do appreciate that. First one's a very simple one. Matt James is named in the delegations to do with Department of Infrastructure. Is that something, is there a way to address that without having to keep addressing it with changing of stuff? Can we just name positions for that?
Natasha, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is one act where we have to actually name people and there are others where we can put in a position. We will have to come back now that Matt James has left and change that, won't we?
So I'm just going to draw a distinction here between delegations and authorisations. So your delegations should always generally be position specific. Sometimes though there will be a need for it to be to a person. Often with your authorisations, there will be a need for individuals to specifically be named to receive the authorisation under legislation. So I'm not sure if there is there might be a distinction, but it's very common for specific staff to be named when it relates to an authorisation.
So is that something that we can address to the position at our end so it doesn't keep coming back with change of staff for the next? So that'll be something that has to come back to council every time a staff member changes?
Not for, so for authorisations, you can you don't need for them to be person specific unless the legislation requires it. So it really does depend upon, which role it is, what legislation they're required to exercise their powers under, as to whether in fact it can be person or position. If it's delegations, it can usually always be position. Unfortunately, with some authorisations, though, it will be to the person. And the reason for that is because the legislation might require that a person have suitable qualifications. And for that reason, it can only be to the person and not the position.
Natasha, I'll just, with the Road Traffic Act, we have named people, and that's the only one I think that Councillor Peach might be referring to. Matt James has now left, so it may be, would it be appropriate if we just took out that position altogether until we actually have a replacement and then bring the that just particular change back to council? We finish the recruitment process. Would that be a way to do it? I think that's what Councillor Peach is trying to ask.
You wouldn't want that to hold up this consideration right now for the purposes. So yes, that can be addressed in that manner.
Tracy, would it be possible just to name the position rather than the person that's in it?
What Natasha was saying is that with authorisations, which is slightly different to the delegations, and that's around the Road Traffic Act, this is the only part of that where the names, otherwise they are all positions.
No,
But
sorry.
for that particular part, they have to be named.
It'd have to be known. Okay.
Whether it's taken out now or not probably doesn't really change this
No,
debate.
that's fine. The delegation under 36(1)A, I've taken on board the feedback that it would become too onerous to report every single contract that's entered into, but I would like to see that amended to being those in any action with a financial implication over $100,000 has that as an automatic reporting in the delegation. So I'm not sure, through Mr. Mayor, whether I wasn't sure whether just to move these as part of the motion as an amendment or to discuss it first.
Just finish your list of questions, I think.
Okay, so 36(1)A was any action with a financial implication over $100,000 report to council as a qualification. I still think that 44(6)A should not be delegated. which is the review of the delegations. I do find that a bit bizarre that the person that receives the delegations is responsible for the review. 137, the feedback I provided on that initially was regarding having the mayor sign off on large financial implications. I've got two comments around that. The first being, I think that should still be the case, particularly after what transpired in the Tatiara Council recently. And I note in the feedback, administration comment in the feedback here that it says above the Chief Executive Officer's financial delegation of $100,000. Now, in the delegations matrix, the Chief Executive Officer's financial delegation is $100,000 plus. So that does seem inconsistent with the administration comment. One saying that it's unlimited and one saying that there is a cap at 100,000. So clarity on that would be helpful in working through that point.
Natasha, can we clarify the last one first, please?
Certainly. So now under section 137, what's the current position that you have?
So the current reading is directors $100,000 is the cap, and then CEO is $100,000 and then the plus sign, which I presume to mean unlimited or any amount over $100,000. However, in the feedback to the query that I raised, it states that the CEO's cap is $100,000. And my point at the time was that I would like to see the mayor on a two to sign basis on any expenditure over $250,000, which I think is still something that we should look at from a prudent management point of view. But I'd like some clarity around, is the CEO's financial delegation uncapped completely, which is how I had read it in the delegations, and it would not how it was given back to us in the comment.
So what you need to have in place when the council has a delegation for an expenditure of funds, there usually should be a condition that attaches to that of a financial limitation. So that this is also linked to this is sort of directly linked to the entering into of contracts too. So you would see that mirrored.
So that's if I may, sorry, that was the other query I had, was in regards to the feedback around the contract entering. It says subject to limitations in section 137. However, section 137 delegation, as I read it, is unlimited.
Okay, now
the CEO.
With the section 137, you someone in the chamber may be able to answer this question quicker than I can flick through them. Is there a condition? Is there a financial limitation or a condition attached to the exercise of the delegation under section 137?
So if it is an unbudgeted item, it will come anyway, regardless of the amount.
Yes.
And that's generally the yardstick, I suppose, that we use.
However, that's not clear in the delegation to 137. It just says expend funds in the performance or discharge of council's powers, functions or duties under the Act. And it seems to, it appears to me that it's an uncapped.
But it does say outside the scope of the adopted budget in that comment.
It's not in the delegations itself, though.
Okay. Thank you.
So the comment didn't bother me. It's the fact that the comment didn't marry up with the delegations.
Sure. I under section 44, there's an inability to delegate any expenditure that's not authorised in any case. So there's a sort of a protection there that exists within the legislation. So it's not a case that it is an unbudgeted, like there's section 137 doesn't give the power for the CEO to say enter into contracts when there is no budgeted funds. It will only be, sorry.
So Natasha, are you saying it's got to be read in conjunction with 44?
Of course, yes. Yes.
So the point I made in my initial submission was that I think the mayor should assign for authority over expenditure over a certain amount, and I think that should still be the case. And So if I could ask through, what was your understanding that the CEO had $100,000 limit or that it was unlimited? I'm
Asking me.
well, or through you to the CEO. I'm trying to get some clarity around that.
No, I'm the 100 plus. Yep.
So-
Your concern is that it doesn't match with how the delegation is written, and then Natasha is saying that it's not the delegation 137 that gives me the power, it's section 44, and they've got to be read together.
So my concern is that anything above the chief executive officer's financial delegation of $100,000 that is outside the scope of the adopted budget will be brought to council, is the wording that was in the administration comment on the query I raised.
Richard, excuse me, if it's approved in the budget, it doesn't matter. You can approve whatever, $1 million.
Correct.
That's right. So anything that's not approved in the budget would have to come back to council anyway.
And that's how I
Doesn't
understood.
matter how much it is.
That's how I understood it when I put my suggestion in that we have two to sign over $250,000. But the comment back had me doubting, questioning that. So I would still like to see Mayor sign off on any expenditure over $250,000.
It would be, Natasha, tell me if I'm wrong, but that would be a council decision because the mayor doesn't have a financial delegation. Is that right?
Correct.
I would have to bring a report to council for each of those occasions.
If it went beyond your limits or there wasn't budget provision, then it would need to be brought back to council.
Through Mayor, is there any way that we can adopt a two to sign, not counting the mayor, but whether it's the CEO and a director in those situations?
In which situation when it is?
If there is expenditure over 250,000,
Yes.
as a figure, could be more, could be less. Is there a mechanism where we can adopt a two to sign policy
That
as a separate set of eyes in the delegate?
I would say it's the purchase of a grader that has been budgeted for.
Mhm.
James will send me the contract. It's generally got James' signature on it already saying this is fine. I sign it, then through our electronic system, I don't approve that expenditure until I get a authorization from them that thing's been delivered, everything's okay, and then we do it. So those internal processes are in place. I'm not sure you'll see them with the allegations manual the way you're looking for, Councillor Peach.
Well, my concern, and I believe it's public knowledge now, is that in the Tatiara Council, a significant sum of money was paid for something that hadn't been built.
Just go real careful here.
And I'd like to see a mechanism in place that potentially prevents that sort of thing happening.
And my councillor, my problem is I have no delegated authority in this area and I don't think I can. One area I do is in relation to a purchase or sale of land as a general rule. So Natasha, I have no power of approving anything, have I, in that respect financially?
That's correct. You don't have, and equally with fellow council members, you aren't afforded any powers to enter into contracts or any powers of delegation. And so the only ability that you do have is in relation to authorised to execute a contract. So for yourself, you do have the ability by resolution to be authorised to sign contracts. And in relation to sale of property, you would routinely see the mayor and CEO executing documents that are property related.
So the purpose of the debate, council could put a different provision in by a totally different minute that the presiding member was advised of a contract over or something about to happen over a figure or not?
I think, if I may, I'm not convinced at this point that your delegations are the framework to manage this particular query. It's not, and I'm unaware of the Tatiara experience and the facts around that, but if there happens to be expenditure incurred prematurely, whatever you have in your delegations, that doesn't matter. Your delegations won't cater for that type of scenario.
So
'Cause if
Natasha, the other thing that I often think about with these discussions is that we have internal and external audits that look at our processes that councillor Peach is referring to.
Correct.
Once, if not twice a year. So that, and then you've got the Audit and Risk Committee who also look at those. So there are those mechanisms already in place.
Yes.
Which
I
is
think-
pretty standard across councils.
Correct. And I think, Councillor Peach, if I may, your concern lies, as I understand it, with the actual physical expenditure of the funds prematurely, essentially.
I
So-
suppose my concern, what I was hoping to achieve, or having two sets of eyes on something at the point of instigation, as opposed to picking it up down the track through an audit process.
Sure. So,
If
and I
this
think-
isn't the right pathway, then I'm happy to take that on board.
yeah, I think you're probably, I mean, we're looking at a quite an isolated situation, what sounds like a very isolated situation. What you normally would have in place is a framework where you have your CEO armed with delegations, of course. Some of those may have conditions around them, some may not. And very rarely do you see any conditions around the exercise of them, perhaps except for a financial condition. Then you would have your CEO then subdelegate those appropriate delegations to the relevant people, your directors or general managers. And so then you would usually routinely have at least someone else who would be there having the ability to exercise those powers too. You wouldn't usually have two council officers of that seniority exercising the same powers at the same time. You have your CEO exercising powers through the scheme of delegations, and support is given to your CEO and obviously for all of you to be able to run efficiently and effectively. You wouldn't usually, and I have never come across it in my 20 years of working with councils on these matters.
Councillors, I'm well aware we're over the 10 minutes. I'm just going to, Councillor, I think if you wanted to deal with it we've been dealing with the last 10 minutes, probably it's a different motion at a different time. The notice of motion was seeking some advice prior. At this stage, sorry, I missed the one before you had. Or?
So thank you. I'm happy to take that on board. That the 136(1)(a), I would like to move an amendment to whatever motion is put today, that any action with a financial implication above $100,000 is automatically reported to council for 36(1)(a). Taking on board the feedback that without something capturing every single contract would be onerous, but
May I interrupt?
Yep.
Through the Mayor, I just want to pause you there, only because I saw this happen at another council meeting earlier in the week. When you say reported to council, there is a simpler mechanism that could be simply that elected members be reported with the information. And that enables the information that you're seeking to be circulated informally outside of the meeting, just perhaps by way of email, rather than necessarily be brought back to a formal meeting.
I'm more than happy with that. Sorry.
So I'm going to ask you, for the purpose of this debate, move that as what, point 12? Am I going with the recommendation?
More than happy to do so, Mr. Minister. It's point 12 under delegation 36(1)(a). Any action, the financial implication above $100,000 is reported with the information to elected members.
Can I ask a question? Does that have to say informally, Natasha, so that otherwise reported to elected members generally, for me, means a report to council? So
Well, if you were to come to me and say, what does that mean? it would be report to elected members. You can write informally if you wish, because otherwise it's the council. But you could say, yeah, you can include the word informally, or you could say distribute the information. Informally makes it abundantly clear.
Maybe is distributed to councillors.
Report it formally, perhaps.
You right, Della? Informally. The councillors.
That will form part of. I was going to say it's reform. Have I got to move it for this yet? No, I haven't. But I'm trying to work out the way to handle this. Natasha, can I move this as an amended report? Or I've got to have someone move the report first and then take the
So,
councillor's
well,
amendment?
So in the first instance, we would need to have we come back out of the suspended meeting procedures?
No, I've let it lapse. I'm sorry to tell you. I
No,
just want to
that's
make
okay.
sure, that Councillor Peach and the others have finished their group of questions. And at this stage, I've got one sort of, I call an amendment to the recommendation at this point.
So, it will just simply be a. So what have we got? If this can be moved as a
I'd very
as
much
a-
like it to be a
as a
separate item.
separate motion, so there doesn't need to be any amendment process.
No.
We can, when it comes to the time of moving the recommendations, that relevant part can just include those words within it.
Yeah, I very much prefer it to be a separate motion, I believe. If the councillor is grants, and I'm just trying to work through since I'm in suspended proceedings.
Mayor, can I just make a comment that will be every fortnight? Our pay is more than that. Our payroll.
So, councillor, you've sort of, still in suspended procedures, quite honest. You've indicated an amendment, or I call an amendment. I'm going to just ask yourself or anyone else if we've got everything else captured that you may want in this before I finish the suspension.
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Mm-hmm.
the section in the Act is may enter into any contract or arrangement, may sue or be sued, or may act in conjunction with any other council or authority. I don't know if that would capture payroll, would it? It's talking about contract.
So we're
Suing.
only, so let's be clear then, it's not about every time we exercise delegation over 100,000, it's only. with
No,
contracts?
it's not delegation over 100,000. It's to do with the specific wordings of 36(1)A, which is contracts, suing or acting in conjunction with another council.
Sorry, I didn't read that.
Right, that's probably better if that's reconfirmed as a separate motion in my view. Otherwise, people will be led to a certain view.
And apologies if I wasn't clear about what I was talking about.
Fine. Have you got any more or anyone else? Because I'm about to bring us back to the just pull us out of suspension. One on the countdown, councillors. Okay, we are pulling ourselves out of 529, the suspension of meeting procedure. What I've indicated to the councillors' questions is I'll take it as a separate motion after a decision on the first. Is there someone, given the questions, and I don't think that changes anything in the recommendation, is someone prepared to move that way? Councillors Arthur and Bland is what I've got there. Is there any further debate around the recommendation in its entirety of, as originally in the agenda, 11 points? You'll close, councillor. Close. Right, so everyone's clear, we're voting on the recommendation as it originally was on the agenda at this point. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Councillor Peach, how can we go with tidying this up here if you want to set as a second motion since we're on the subject? As long as it, yeah.
that if a, sorry, just get to that wording.
It's the section you're talking about. We need to emphasise the section. Section 36(1)(a), regard to the provisions of that, aren't you?
Yes, which is entering into contracts or arrangements, being sued or suing, acting in conjunction with another council or authority. With regards to that section, any action taken that has a financial implication of over $100,000.
You got that written down there?
I'm just going with what's up here.
All right.
So
So I think it'd be useful for everyone, so we're clear that that's what you're saying is what's in the motion, actually. I'll just give you a bit of time to put that in.
Mayor, sorry, councillor Peach, we probably don't need that in because that section is that section.
yes. So I was just explaining that
We
to
don't
be
need
clear
in.
that what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So that when exercising, sorry. Sorry, the delegation under section 36(1)(a), any action taken over $100,000, any action taken with a financial implication over $100,000 is reported informally to council members. Yep.
Question was just, do we always know the financial implication at that point? We wouldn't report it until we were certain. Sometimes there will be contracts that are based on a particular, James helped me out, but we may not know the exact amount until after the event. So we will know, I will report once we know for certain.
You'll move what's on the screen now, councillor?
Yes, happy to move.
Yep, so moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidman is the seconder. Councillor Peach, you want to speak to your
I think
motion?
I've said
now?
enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You feel you had a crack at it? Thank you, councillor Maidman. You want to speak as the seconder?
No, I'm quite happy with what's been put up. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to enter this debate?
I'd just like a little bit of a clarification. here.
Certainly.
Any action taken with financial implications, could you explain any action?
Section outlines, and that's what we just discussed a moment
Yeah.
ago, councillor Arthur. It's around contracts and the
Yeah.
ability to be sued. It's very clear in the section.
So this means we may go back to the old days when we'd get the list of every check that the council had paid for the meeting, because there'd be a lot of contracted payments well over 100,000.
Correct.
But that will
Within-
be approved in the
Within
budget.
that, no, but within the confines of 36(a).
Okay, whatever.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to query the use of the word informally, because it may concern me, because sometimes the CEO spoke then of involving a contract, and this could be confidential.
So my understanding from this motion is that I will send it out of session. I'm happy to put a confidential on it, as all emails that I send to you are generally specify whether it's for general distribution or just for your eyes only, really.
Thank you. Yep.
Yep. That's right. Anyone else? You close, councillor. So the motion is councillor Peach moved and councillor Maidman seconded that when exercising delegations under section 36(1)(a), the Local Government Act 1999, any action taken with a financial implication over 100,000 is reported informally to council members. In other words, not to the chamber as a grouping, but via whatever communication at the time. I'm ready to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. I'm taking that we've dealt with item 1 and we let Natasha go now at this point. Thank you very much, Natasha.
Thank you for having me.
No
Good
worries.
night.
Cheers. Thank you, councillors. Item 2, equity reserve policy. There is a policy, equity reserve policy we can adopt as presented. You want to ask a question, councillor?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that this be adjourned till we've had proper discussion on it.
I think you can just adjourn it. I don't think you can, if it's already been adjourned, where does that sit?
Hasn't been.
Was
When?
when you were chairing.
Last meeting. There's a lot to discuss, eh?
When you say we need an action, we would need a further workshop on this. My advice, councillor, is that it would be useful to have at least the chair of our audit and risk committee explain how there's a difference between the two policies, I think, the reasoning behind it. I did sit through part of that, mate. Yes, councillor. Yeah.
Yeah, your worship.
Yep.
What this is doing is providing the opportunity to consider specific reserves. We're not making a decision about whether we're going to have a Martin Fleet reserve. We're not making a decision about whether we're having a lap reserve. All we're doing is developing a policy that would guide that decision. And this was the recommendation of the Audit and Risk Committee. So yes, I do agree with you, Mayor, that it would have probably been handy if I had any insight to what might have been the case tonight. I would have probably lined up Michelle Bennett. But again, this isn't making a decision as to whether you're going to have a Martin Fleet or a lap. This is just a policy to give you the guidance decision, which would likely be at the next council meeting in October, if this passed.
Haven't taken your motion yet, councillor. I'm awaiting your response.
We're just having another look at this here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
It sort of infers. It doesn't make a recommendation.
No,
Okay.
and it would be actually quite useful if Michelle at a workshop or something. Because there was quite a debate around this in the committee. And
I just think one of the things in the report that, you know, this money is actually hidden away and never used is rubbish. It's always used in the budget process. You know, we don't have, 3 million sitting in the CWS scheme or something like that. It's used. And in fact, you know, look, if we want to get down to nitty gritty, the council should be paying the CWS scheme interest on the money that is in there. So
don't get too nitty gritty. Right, are you assuaged by that we have, besides that we might move on with this motion, that we do get, I think Michelle would be the right person to actually present to either a workshop around this broad issue of reserves. There's only a policy setting up the process, not committing to it. I'm taking that as a yes, and I'm going to ask for a move.
yeah, I'll move that.
You're having to move that, right? Move it as read, as in the agenda. Councillors, I've got my glasses on. Councillor Coleman, sorry, you are the seconder.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right, anyone else want to speak to this little one?
I just think it'll be an interesting little conversation.
Oh, yeah, there always are.
Yep. Opposed?
Those, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I might try to vote. It's carried unanimously. I'm taking it. Councillor, unless you tell me different. Thank you. Look, councillors, I want someone to have a crack at this air conditioning system and see if it can take me out of the hothouse and I think I'm still on holidays. It's not working. All right. We're going to sweat it out the longer it becomes, councillors, but I was still on holidays.
Yeah. Yeah. You know where that other bit on the side come from.
Councillors, item 6.1 is my report. Some of you had the chance to join me in various parts of the visit with the Governor of the state, Honourable Frances Adamson. I think she enjoyed herself very much. She had a good look around, and probably one of the features while you were meeting last month was the formal sing-along at the community house at Tailem Bend that she was quite happy with Old Lang Syne and several other songs sang lustily. I don't think anything else there. As you know, my health is probably improving pretty well now after a couple of months of some concussion. Nothing else. Any other questions there, councillors? We move on. Councillor Maidment, you want to add to your extensive report?
It is, thank you, Mayor. And sure, you know, I don't want to add to it. It is extensive. I agree. But no-
I thought I'd missed the St. Luke's Anglican Church dinner, but I report monthly. That's how I worked it out.
That's right. Yep. No, that was a lovely evening.
Certainly was. Councillor Qualman,
Just thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along with Councillor Arthur and Councillor O'Hara, we had an enjoyable trip and quite exciting trip to the road conference at Port Lincoln. Thank you.
and drive through at Whyalla, you said.
Yes, not alcohol.
Worth your attendance as a group of councillors, like things that come out of it that were valuable to us.
Yeah. Food wasn't real fresh, was it?
Looking forward to all the.
That's food we had for more money.
Right. And councillors, you'd be aware that the MDA conference is next week.
Yes.
So yeah, that's good. Okay, I'll move on. 7 petitions, we have nil. 8 deputations, I have nil. 9 at public question time, I have none. Any form. 10 decision reports, 10.1 Disability Access and Inclusion Progress Report. Council receive and note the report. Someone, Councillor O'Hara is moving that way. The seconder, Councillor Bland. Want to speak, Councillor O'Hara, to the process, Councillor Bland? Good with that. Progress there is a progress report. Anyone else? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I'm taking your finger in that angle. Councillor Peach is yes. Unanimously carried. Number 2, Coorong District Local Action Plan Strategic Vision 2023-28. Recommendations that council adopt Coorong District Local Action Plan Strategic Vision 23-28. Thank them very much for the work to get it to this point. Is there anyone wish to move that way? Councillor Arthur. Your seconder. Councillor Qualman. Councillor Arthur, you want to speak?
They have put a lot of work into this.
Right.
And I think they've come up with a fairly good.
Good robust plan.
Yep.
Certainly have. Councillor Qualman, you have an ad?
No, thank you, Mr.
Anyone
Mayor.
else? Yes.
I have missed it. We workshop this. Sorry, Brian's not in here then.
I'm getting a nod from the officer involved at the back. Okay. Councillor Peach.
I just have a question for that. My understanding was from that workshop, and correct me if I'm wrong here, was that does this one need to go to public consultation at all?
No, this essentially maps priorities and activities, so.
There's more of an internal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing else. You're closing, Councillor Arthur. Opposed? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 3, Regional Development Australia Murraylands and Riverland, a funding agreement for 23-24 for, in fact, for the balance of this financial year we're in, that this one involves. There's 2 parts to the recommendation. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Arthur. There a seconder? Councillor Maidment, thank you. Councillor Arthur, you want to speak to it?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
And we're just adjusting, hang on. councillors, and I'm looking at the mover and the seconder now. The Chief Executive Officer is on that board. We've just been alerted to a little bit of an adjustment here, so we think that Director in Corporate and Community should be authorised to execute the funding agreement. You are
I'm
both,
easy with it.
everyone's happy with that? We just picked that up. There you go. Because that could be seen as a conflict. Any other further debate? Councillor Qualman.
A couple of questions and a comment. Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, why is it only 9 months?
Because we're in the financial year we're in and we're already 3 months in effect.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know that may appear strange, but
Just had to ask the question. And also just a comment, it's interesting and maybe concerning that the rural city of Murray Bridge doesn't vote to support this organisation.
I'll speak to this. So, no, I wouldn't say they don't vote to support it. At this stage, they are going down a bit of a different path, I understand.
Okay, yep, thank you.
I wouldn't say they don't support, that'd be a bit of a
Right.
bold statement. They're seeking a bit of a different path at the moment, but
Okay,
I think in the next few months, that'll be sorted out.
I didn't want to really use that word, but that's the word I heard. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Beach?
What exactly are we getting out of the expenditure going into this at the moment? If I could ask through you, Mr Mayor.
I'm going to ask Miles to speak to that. I'm
Um,
not going to ask the CEO.
no, that's fair enough. It's through the chair. So in pulling together the KPIs, I had a very deliberate conversation with BP to tie their activity to the growth strategy. So everything we were talking about before about opportunities for growth, Tailem Bend, the entire district, I see RDA as filling the gaps in terms of the resources that we don't have, that economic development piece we don't have. I can only do so much, Bridget can only do so much, and our other staff. So this is where they have extremely good contacts into stakeholders, both government and non-government. And we will be requiring reports on the activities they're undertaking to help deliver the objectives of the growth strategy. An example of that would be the hydrogen project. That's just one example. There's plenty more, but they're quite influential in that project. And that will be a game changer for the district. They're quite influential in activities that occur out the bend as well. And they just provide that additional professional consultancy type activity that otherwise we got to go out to the market to access at a higher price, I would say. But we have to work to make sure that we do get that value, and I'm determined to do that.
Anyone else? There being none. Councillor Arthur, you close again. Close. The motion is that we agree to a non-binding RDA and that we authorise the Director of Corporate and Community to execute the funding agreement. With the motion, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Item 4, 2023 Local Government Association Conference and Annual General Meeting. Councillors, just bring your attention to the last part of the discussion. We've sort of semi-confirmed today. The South Australian Government is having a country cabinet visit to the MacKillop electorate on Thursday, the 26th and Friday, the 27th. Narra Court and Bordertown, and we're still not quite sure exactly where and when. We feel at the executive and myself level that I should attend that. And we're lodging our letters with the, try and meet certain ministers as soon as possible, part of that process. Therefore, that Deputy Mayor, and I've spoke to him, is happy to go to Adelaide for the annual general meeting of the LGA and the meeting of the LGFA. He's actually the authorised proxy anyway, so we wouldn't need to adjust that. But I would encourage any other councillors, if they wish to go to this function, to go. particularly the councillor Peach, if you, if you really were free, it would be an interesting day out. But I'll leave that to you, councillors. I just, my view is I should go to the southeast that day. So is anyone, can we nominate, start with the deputy mayor, and then does anyone else wish to go?
I will be away.
You'll be away. Oh,
Not that I don't wish to go.
that's what I was thinking. You don't have to go. There's no compulsion, but
I think
councillor Mayman, you went to one, you.
I did, but
You're-
now that I've recently
working,
got
yeah?
a job, I don't want to take the time off that. at this
Councillor
point.
Peach, if you didn't go, at the end of the earth, if you really need to be nominated now if you're thinking about it.
Happy to be nominated, but I'm a little doubtful looking at my calendar for that week.
I appreciate that, yeah, but there's not much downside in that apart from we may fall for a little bit of a registration fee or. But if he pulled out at a certain time, that'd be fine. I think that'd be, yeah. Councillor O'Hara, you're probably involved long enough where you're not interested.
Yeah, no,
You went to the roads conference, so
busy at that day, I think.
they'll be selling expensive cattle. Councillor Peach, sorry I put a bit of pressure on you, but are you happy to be in the motion at this stage?
I'm happy to be in the motion.
Councillor Corman's sitting very quietly.
As I may say, I've been to 2 conferences and thank you. That's enough for.
Councillor Mayman,
I'm happy to nominate pending whether I could get the time off, because it is a new job.
I don't see a downside in that, but we probably just need to get when the registrations closes that off. I don't know, councillor, will you be going down for the night before or is it as the delegate, or you may not be?
I'll just have my son anyway.
Yep. So, but it's
Going
only, at the- I
rallies.
think it's to the wine centre this time, is that right, from my memory?
Yeah.
Okay, so this stage we're endorsing the attendance of the deputy mayor and councillors Peach and Maidman. Is that what the room's consensus is? Yes.
Allowed to go to that?
Ooh.
I don't think we have that detail yet.
I'm just thinking what makes the other.
I don't think we've got that detail at all.
Those who don't go may have an opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be intending to try and grab some ministers on the way past as well.
Fortunately, I will be.
Okay, so we are down to yep, councillors Peach and Mayman and the deputy mayor. The motion is on the screen, councillors, and the deputy mayor will be council's voting delegate.
Would you have to put a confirmation date on that because you want to book the rooms and lose the
Well,
deposits?
yeah, well, it'll come up, but we still haven't got that information, as is often the case, I don't believe. I don't think I've seen it from the LGA around nominations and that. For the whole registration process.
So through the mayor, the registration has just opened, so that's, we're able to book you in if we need to. Generally, they don't close it until
Been
quite
to
late,
too many.
but accommodation would be a consideration.
This is only a one-day event as I read it, in effect.
Networking event.
The Thursday is the day. Unless you want to miss the networking, councillor Arthur.
Yeah.
That's all right. That changed a minute.
Dodging COVID like it did.
But whatever you do, business. Okay, the motion is as it reads on the screen, councillors. Someone want to move that way? Councillors Qualman and Bland. Any discussion? If there is none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? As against, it's carried unanimously. Number 5, certification of the financial statements. You'll see there's a process there around this. Authorises the mayor and CEO to sign the certification of financial statements 22-23 once they're completed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, why would we authorise the signing before we've seen the completed document?
CEO will have a go at it.
We don't sign it until after you've had the final document. This is just a preliminary to say you give the authorization to sign it. We won't sign it before you see it.
Every year someone asks, I don't mind.
I'll try to
I'm taking
pass that on.
I'm taking that you're moving it then. Yes.
No, actually, I won't be
It
moving.
won't be all right. Does someone else have a bit to move it? Councillor O'Hara, thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Now you've had an explanation. There's not. Put the motion. All those in favour? You'll go in the minute book in a minute, councillor. Wait, is your hand up or down, councillor?
Down.
Down. Those against is councillor Peach. No. It's carried, not unanimously. Councillor Peach reckons that it's a no-no, but
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just find it a little bizarre.
it's been the same in my,
For
all
12
my
years.
career here.
Well, it's 3 years to me. Who do you think should be signed?
No issue with them signing it once we've seen the completed document, but we're authorising the sign off before it's been finished. Which is where I think it's a bit bizarre.
Local government, councillor.
Hmm.
Number 6, Coorong Asset Management Strategy. Councillor Arthur, you're going to move that way. You're chair of the committee. You're moving that way as it reads. Is there a seconder? Councillor Peach. Is there any questions? Went through the entire public consultation process. Comments are in the agenda. Councillor Maidman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I have to compliment the report. It's a really well done document. It's fantastic. And the next one coming up is really good too, so I'll get that in now. But I have a query around the climate change component of that document. It states in the recommendation number 3 that we'll make adjustments according to need, or I'll read it correctly when I find it. Make necessary adjustments to council's long-term financial plan to accommodate the recommendations made within the Coorong Asset Management Strategy, recommendation 3. I don't know how councils can do that when we don't really know with any certainty what climate change.
I'll give it a stab and then I'll look at the director. But an example that comes to mind is that there's building roads or some asset that we have that is in direct response to the reduction of carbon or something like that. So it could be that there's a new material that becomes mandated that we need to use for part of our construction. And that's a very simplistic example, but those types of recommendations, and they may be recommendations at the beginning, they will start to turn into mandated changes over time. And this is that opportunity, I suppose, to give us some wiggle room to make sure that we are compliant.
Okay. Adjustments.
Of course.
Moving forward,
Yes.
and it's just that wasn't really documented where that could possibly lead. Opened up a little bit of a can of worms for
And through
me.
you, Mayor,
that's all.
you're right. We don't know what we don't know yet.
About the results of the flood, we might argue some may argue it's climate change, some may argue it's normal cycle or a long-term drought. And the Bland entered council when we did have a long-term drought, and we probably had to shift our mindset around dealing with it. So yeah, it means what it means. Anyone else? There is no one. Councillor Arthur's going to close again.
Look, I thank the authors of the report. They've done a magnificent job. And I'll close the vote.
Okay. The motion is as it reads in the agenda. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Move to number 7, Road and Transport Infrastructure Asset Management. 2023 to 33. Trying to find it, councillors, but someone, where's it gone? Little tabs. The motion's on the screen anyway. We receive a note and report and adopt the 22-23 road and transport infrastructure asset plan and make the necessary adjustments to the council's long-term financial plan to accommodate the recommendation made within the roads and transport infrastructure asset management plan. Praying for no amendment. Councillor Bland, you're moving. Thank you. You're a seconder. Councillor Arthur. Councillor Bland, do you want to speak to it?
No, I think it's clear, and we all know that things get adjusted as required within that very long period of time that we move in.
Yeah. Councillor Arthur.
And very well compiled report.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you. I hope I'm on the right track here. There's a road asset management plan review. And it's got a response here and it's concerns raised about illegal fencing on gates or something on a public road, that being Wellington Lodge Road. Well, council knows, got any response to that? What's going on
From the public comments on the agenda, councillor.
in the agenda?
Yeah, there is some discussion. More an administrative issue. It's a policy issue. Council has, and I think it might have related to the last one, more road reserve. As you'd know, council has enormous amount of unmade road reserves.
Mhm.
I think it was relating as much to that as anything else.
Just thought it's interesting.
Yeah,
It was highlighted, that's all.
Anyone else? There is no one. I will. You're closing, councillor. I'll put the motion as it reads on the screen. Thank you. All those in favour? As against, that means that's carried unanimously. Get to the next one, councillor. Number 8. Construction of an unmade road reserve on Brock Road at Tintinara. And then director and myself met with some people directly and indirectly affected by this. There's quite a long discussion there, councillors. What we would also take out of that discussion and conclusion is to look at our next contacts with ARTC, the Rail Track Authority, how often we could have crossovers on the railway main line, because we need, that's the best place to have fire breaks in the vegetation. Now that may not be possible, but there is some opportunity maybe at every kilometre to have a break where the water pipe, which is almost more unpassable than a fire, does duck underground for a bit. And I just note in the agenda, I don't know whether it's in relation to this, there's some pipe works at Tintinara coming along soon. And some advisor. Councillor Peach, you were also in attendance. You wish to speak?
I do. Look, I'm happy to move that we receive and note the report, but I'd like to make some additions to that. I think the concept of longitudinal breaks is excellent and would be supported by both the CFS and the community. CFS noting that they talked about it in here. I do think that there still needs to be an ongoing conversation around making that track accessible. And I do have a slight issue with the conclusion. Not asking for an upgrade, but making it passable from trees that have grown into it. I think that is a conversation that still needs to be had. Not necessarily today, but it's still something we need to work on. But I'm happy to move that motion with an amendment that we also approach ARTC in conversation with them to investigate as part of the fire break proposal, putting in another railway crossing.
As part of the fire prevention
Plan or procedure.
Possibility of further or additional.
Yes, as part of a fire prevention function.
I think that if that's worded.
I think so. So the break would be something we'd have to do with the CFS, but a crossing across the track at the midpoint somewhere.
We probably, it's what, 7 kilometres between 2 points there, 6 or 7, we think. And
which in smoke is a very long way. sorry, to request that they consider another railway crossing to aid in fire prevention or to aid in fire management.
This is fully around fire management council. There's nothing to do with additional road, public road, which has, as you would be aware, we have the most public road crossings of a ARTC track in Australia as a council, I'm told, and 26. And 2 of them are recently hot mixed with bitumen. They're a fairly reasonable cost, as in a lot of money.
For you, Mr. Mayor, does that mean we have? Go?
No. So what I just said was in relation to what I call public road railway crossings. There are other crossings which actually aren't public. I think the motion's all right in that it gives us a bit more to go to the ARTC and talk about their policy around crossovers between 2 points where there's actually just none for many, many kilometres. And just see what the possibilities are. We have an unfortunate situation, a situation in our area where the water main, which you can't jump over, parallels the railway line, which parallels the highway, which parallels strips of native vegetation. Both sides, some sides, all sides. That brings quite a few complications. We've seen that happen twice between Culburra and Tintinara in recent years, once north of Kermondoo and or in other areas. And we just want to try and see where we may be able to, influence that process with ARTC in perhaps a corporate sense.
Listen, just a question. What's the difference between the public crossover and a private? Because
There is some. There is some along the track.
Yeah, because there is one further down, which is in Tintinoo, which ARTC classify as private, and we classify as private. It's no different than
Been where?
any of the others. Brett Myers.
Driveway crossing.
You sure that's not a public road? Well, but that's my. Well,
So that's access to his farm. And he's
yeah,
been
so
told,
I suppose I make my point. I make my point as much as perhaps reinforce. I was thinking, I thought that was a public crossing, funnily enough. An issue? Councillor, advice is perhaps we move it as 2 motions. Since I've got no mover yet. Is everyone happy? Can I move the first one as it originally was on the agenda, please? Councillor Peach will move the first one. Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Hara, any discussion around that? We just received a note of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just note that while receiving and noting, I don't have an issue with moving that. The final outcome of the conclusion, again, I don't disagree regarding not progressing an upgrade, but there is some work that still needs to be done there, and hopefully it's in conjunction with the other recommendations of this
That's right.
report to achieve
Better outcome.
better outcome.
Well, a outcome. Okay, anyone else? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. It's just the second one would be that, going to move it again, councillor?
Yeah, happy to so move.
Councillor Peach, that council approaches the ARTC to request to consider another railway crossing to aid of fire management. I think that's enough for us. In that area or between Culburra and Tintinara, perhaps we can tighten that up a fraction.
Yes, happy to have that added.
I think would be worth pursuing that as much as a policy from their point of view as anything else. They had, as a general, over time, wanted to reduce crossings, but in some cases they had 2 crossings within 300 metres of each other, which seemed a bit pointless. So, Councillor O'Hara, are you indicating you're the seconder or you? Yes, thank you.
Between railway crossing between Culburra and Tintinara.
Or Jeski Road and Tintinara.
Yes,
Just tighten it right up. Otherwise, we're going to be told, the answer.
Yeah, between Jeski Road and Tintinara.
That will see if we've got a policy in that area for everyone. Jeski Road.
Kaeschke. JAE SCHKE. At the moment, it's that high to get up and over it. AE.
Okay. I've got a mover and a second. Have been councillors Peach and O'Hara. It's on the screen. We approach the ARTC to request they consider an additional railway crossing between Jeske Road, Colborough and the Tintinara Township, which will be Forward Avenue, to aid fire management. Everyone clear? Question? Yes.
And that is in relation to the comments about tree trimming on Brock Road. Is that possible that that could go into our
It's outside,
routine?
it's outside of our policy at the moment.
Right, so
Councillor.
we can't actually add that in there in this.
Well, I wouldn't add that at this stage. I'd try and deal with this first, I think.
The risk issues are not that high then.
There's always risks. It's a substantial overgrowth.
Right.
Qualman,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to comment on the motion that it's well written and considering to say the word considered. We're not committing ourselves to some view. And also demonstrating, well, emphasising the reason it's for fire management. So I'm totally support. Thank you.
you. Anyone else? Okay, close the debate. You'll close the debate, but I'm closing it here for you.
So close.
Okay, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Let's do the two next items. Break to that beautiful air conditioner. I know power's expensive, but. Number 9, RAA electric vehicle charging stations. Councillor Blandy.
First, we suspend.
We can suspend. I'm going to ask the director to explain, or the acting director anyway. But do you want me to just let him explain, or you want to suspend?
If it's an open discussion. Yeah.
How about we start with the director explains the changed proposal from the RAA around this.
Certainly. Thank you. Yeah, through you. So originally we had a proposal to put the electric vehicle charging station out of the car park adjacent to the Meningie office. I mean, that Lions Park. RAA investigated power. There's insufficient power to that site. Sufficient power was provided to that site. It'd have to come from the corner of Princess Highway and Narung Road at quite significant cost, which puts the project outside the budget for RAA. So we looked to seek alternative locations. The alternative location in Meningie was the old CFS building on the corner of Narung Road and Princess Highway, which is currently budgeted to be demolished. That leaves council's contribution component to the car park adjacent council office, which was $70,000 as noted in the recommendation as project. So the recommendation put forward is that we proceed with that with the adopted $70,000 budget. Recommendation is that RAA provide the funding appropriate to build the charging station at Narung Road site. Council will deliver the project, however, RAA will fund the project, civils of the project, I should add. Following on from that, across the state, they've also had similar issue at other locations. So in consultation with RAA, we looked to identify some other areas. The first of those areas was the top of Punt Road here in Tailem Bend. There's a small rubble parking bay, which is at the top of the stairs leading down to Dixon Reserve. That was one site that has close by high voltage power good location, REA were keen to explore it. And they've come back and they want to pursue a car park there. Again, they are willing to fund the charging vehicle station component of the car park. So that's 4 parking bays and a driveway access back to Punt Road. The recommendation further to that is if we're doing that work, we should expand it to beautify is potentially not the right word, to seal the remainder of that parking bay so it doesn't become unsealed. You don't have 4 car parks bitumised in the middle of the parking bay. So extend that to the extents. That budget estimate at the moment, based on rates we're achieving for other projects, is $65,000 to seal the entire car park plus line market, formalise some better pedestrian access between council's existing sort of footpath network and the pedestrian stairs at the top of Dixon Reserve. So that's points 3 and 4 of the recommendation. Point 5 of the recommendation is in a similar vein. REA have a 2-vehicle high voltage fast charge system, and they've identified Knowpen as a possible location for that. Richards Terrace, it would be on the road verge there. So between the property boundary and the curb line, there's sufficient room to have 90-degree angle, 90-degree parking there. Originally, we would have preferred it over the other side of Duke's Highway where the parking bay is, but there's no high voltage power there. Nothing sufficient. So the high voltage power runs, road name, sorry, wrong. I think it's the Peak Terrace runs one road back from Duke's Highway to through Knowpen. The high voltage runs down there, and then there's little offshoots down each of those side roads. So between myself and REA, we identified that Richards Terrace would be the best location. It's got the open parkland, which is not council's land, that's Telstra land, but it's uses open parkland and maintained in that manner, and it has the required high voltage close by.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, Richards Road, is that the one down the side of the oval, is it?
No, one further back, it's directly opposite the silos,
Running parallel with the highway.
perpendicular to the highway.
All right.
Yeah. So the
Old
attached,
Peter Hoodyard.
Oh, yeah.
you'll see, keep scrolling through the agenda, you'll see the attachment with the plan showing where it's going to go.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay. So that's the description of the projects. Can we have some questions around the projects first? If there is any?
Well, yeah, I'd just like to ask the question. When, many years ago, when service stations come out, did councils build them or provide facilities for them? So why are we supplying facilities for these EV stations? It's the RAA, in hyphenation, the state Labor government, that's actually giving the money out for these. And with the recommendation here, if we don't seal the council office car park, it'll cost us virtually no more money. So why would we go ahead with sealing that when we don't have to? Because that was original, it's never been spoken about before.
Already in the budget.
Sorry?
It's already in the budget.
One is in the budget. It's the.
But it was to do with sealing it with the EV charging stations being there. The EV charging stations are coming out of there, and it's like the Narung old CFS building, is that
Road.
being removed?
So councillor, just to be really clear, that's already been budgeted for long ago, and that process of removal of that building as agreed is ended and probably coming very soon.
Well, it hasn't been budgeted for. It's been
No,
spoken
it
about.
has been, councillor.
Where's the budget for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This, in conversation with other councillors, there seems to be a general absence of recollection around us actually budgeting for that and agreeing to it. So could we have the minute item for that, please?
It would be just in our maintenance budget, and the maintenance budget has been approved.
So
It'd be a line item.
when
that
did we make
came
the
to council.
determination to remove the building?
There is a
Through the
minute.
chair,
was a-
that was the previous.
There was a
change.
motion to council.
Why did we have a workshop on what to do with the building since I've been here?
Why haven't we?
We did. And then there was supposed to be something that came back. Yes.
biggest problem with that is the actual contents of the building and how much it costs us to take it.
I'd have to ask the executive assistants to search the minutes to see when we discussed that, and I think you're right, it was in the previous elected members.
But we've definitely, since the new members have been in this room, we've definitely had a workshop on what to do with the CFS building. Been a report and a discussion
Yes.
around it.
There was.
So you may, and I'm just checking here, was it a report that we held? There's definitely been a motion of council to demolish it. Was it we're going to have a look and I can't remember, to be honest. Was it a report to council that we held to alert the new councillors of what was happening with it? In December of this year, January, sorry.
Ashley, could you read the?
Through the mayor, the report went to the 24th of January council meeting 2023. And it read, council resolves in respect to the former CFS shed at lot 343 Princess Highway, Meningie, that it is to be demolished and the site retained by council. That was carried unanimously.
The dollars would be in the maintenance budget that was approved. It wouldn't have come as a thing.
Julian, I'm not disagreeing with any of that being in the budget or that previous council as well about, and I believe we went to public consultation about that building because there were some considerations about people wanting to use it. And I think a community member did come up here to sit in to listen on the report in January. However, having said that, what I don't know about, and I may have missed it, maybe I wasn't in attendance, and that is the money for Punt Road that we're now looking to vary the budget to do. Where are we about to find another $60,000-70,000 to do that part of the process that we've now added into this 65,000? Or is it coming out of roads budget?
So I just want to confirm that in the report, so financial implications for, it was item 7 in January, was a demolition cost to be included in the 23-24 budget. So in the budget, you pass a group of funds around buildings and that's where it would be and as a line.
That's rather smoke and mirrors. What have answered, Mr. Mayor?
Council agreed
Okay.
Council agreed to demolish the building, but it didn't fund it in 22-20, the point. And it is to be demolished and the site retained as community open space. We can have a further debate if you wish around the proposal from the RAA, but in terms of the building being a piece of land with no longer a building on it.
I think it's, Mr. Mayor, if I might, in relation to whether it's community space, as long as the community garden and that is already there is maintained, there is some angst around that, but also that, you know, we accept that for someone who cannot work out whether there's high power anywhere, voltage anywhere in Meningie, doesn't continually overload, I accept that that's a space that we will have to utilise for that. So, and I do believe that EV parking is needed in our communities and Meningie area has none whatsoever in town at this point. So I'm not unhappy with process. In relation to Councillor Arthur's comment about the resurfacing of what was going to be the EV parking, but the other part of that conversation, if I remember correctly, was the fact that, and you read it all through the report in another piece of work in this agenda, is that there is absolutely no increase in parking available unless we do something like this near the park, and it would connect up to the new shelters, allow disability access and a whole range of other things. We would need to seal it and continue, and that money was allocated.
Yes, so while it was going to do both
things.
purposes before, now it's brought back to just a car park and not an EV parking station.
And it's
In
definitely a
relation to the
benefit.
land adjacent to the park. So let's be clear that the removal of the old CFS building allows us in particular, which is a long running issue, to access our, is it water pumps or sewage pumps a little further behind. And at the moment, we get there by the good grace of the adjoining landowner.
Correct.
So the proposal as you see it takes account of that you can put parking spaces there for the RAA to have their charging station. There is enough power on the corner according to whoever needs to make that decision. And that lease is 5 years, isn't it? Really, that's the point we would make to I take Councillor Arthur's point. I don't necessarily disagree with him, but that would be the point around the Meningie one. And I just work my way through these gently. So Tailem Bend, is everyone aware where we're talking about at the top of Punt Road, where there's a piece of
And now,
open rubble, a few big power poles nearby and a rhino keeping an eye on us? Is there any fundamental questions around that?
I have one.
Yes, yep, go.
Through you, Mayor. With the budgetary issues with that one, is it possible? Is there a timeline on when any of these things need to get up and running? Because we've already passed the budget for the Meningie and we can still do that. But the other two in question, which I don't recall seeing before today, I think there needs to be a little bit more consideration around those. I'm wondering whether we could delay those two to have a meeting or a workshop or something on those.
Looking at the acting director, what processes, how urgent is the RAA making this for us?
The stage one of the RAA processes is to enter into what they're referring to as site host agreements. So that's where council agree to host the electric vehicle charging stations. There is urgency around that.
Okay,
The urgency around the construction is not, there's not the same level of urgency around the construction. So we could enter into a site host agreement and potentially construct next financial year, if that's sort of what you're alluding to.
that's what I'm alluding to, given that it's come up, given the timeline constraints. And I just don't see that we have budget adjustment 65,000 in the budget at the moment, unless it's come from somewhere I don't know about, which is fine, possible. I just wondered whether RAA can do at the Punt Road site, they can do their part, which costs council minimum to nothing. And then we seal the rest in the following year, or if the budget's there.
So let's just go to this point. Does the host agreement include absolutely nailing the site, or is it?
Yeah, so the site plans are attachments to the site host agreements, yes.
Councillor O'Hara is next.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see a problem with what councillor Maidment's saying. If we wanted to, we could, the RAA can still go ahead and build them. As James said earlier, it'll be a bit in the middle with dirt around it. Big deal, and it's got to be like that for 12 months. And we can add it in next year's budget to bitch and was it. The Albert one's not going to cost us anything, is it? No, so that, go ahead with that. We don't want to miss out on these charging things and this deal from the state government and the RAA. It's a good deal. Don't bite the hand that feeds you, I say.
Councillor Bland and Councillor Peach.
My question is around the location, given that it is sitting on the other, Tailem Bend,
Yep.
Punt Road, sitting over on the other side of the highway. Majority, we want to bring people into town. Was there no location considered in this area? It's not that this area doesn't have some EV charging stations on the highway here, if you want to go out further out of town, or service stations, etc. But if we want to bring people off the thing, did we look at anything that's within the township precinct?
So yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we looked at some options throughout the main street, Railway Terrace car park. One of the keys is 90-degree entry and exit. So a lot of our parks here are parallel parks. They don't, but you can't forward and reverse enter to charge at both ends of the vehicle. That sort of rules out road verge, car parks over at the information station don't have the power that we need, the high voltage. So they were looked at, but that was the preferred site by REA.
It's disappointing.
These are fast charge, so they're 15 to 30 minute, depending on what vehicle you have. They're not a slow overnight charge. So the intention was, yeah, they have access to the Dixon Reserve front facility whilst they're charging, picnic, barbecue facility and their public toilets. It was appealing to RAA as a site.
We get stats through you, Mr. Mayor. Will we get stats on people, numbers using them? And all EVs, I'd like to know how many people actually access them
It's
over time.
through you, Mr. Mayor, that's not a part of the agreement, but I'm sure we could get some usage around kilowatt hours of
Be good
power supplied through them.
in all sites that we have, and it'd be good good general information. And I agree with councillor Maidment.
Now, councillor Peach is next.
Couple of questions. The original proposal for the site in Meningie was a significant number of bays over and above what's now being proposed. Is that correct?
The original site had three, Mr. Mayor, had four. So that's what they're calling a tier, a tier one site is 4 parking bays. Tier 2 site is 2 parking bays.
So when this was originally proposed, we were told that Meningie was the key point in terms of journey travel. And I believe the question was asked, what about Tarlenben and Canelpin? And at the time it was no, it has to be this distance to Meningie. So what exactly has changed there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's changed with similar issues at other locations around the state. They now have unallocated units, and we were right place, right time, right location. They wanted to pursue our other options.
Seems like they're wanting to meet their quota.
There'll be another way of wording it, Councillor.
So it's
Simple, they
I'm
didn't have
sorry.
the power about it.
Well, as an old, as an old ETSA operative, councillor. The power wasn't available. Sorry,
I'll
James.
make one more comment, please, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's only today that RAA have asked whether a tier 1 site would be appropriate for the Narung Road site as well. So there is a small potential that gets upgraded to a 4-bay charging station. However, I need to do some work onto that to see whether it's feasible. I think that would be unfeasible at this point in time, but it is an option from RAA.
Very small title, that one. So would this limit us at the Narung site from doing anything else with that title?
No.
Okay, I'm not in favour of further expenditure. And I think the original $70,000 was allocated on the basis of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I would probably be in favour of reallocating that to the Tarlenben site at the moment and considering the Meningie car park as a later date procedure. It's my view at the moment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Oh, yeah, well, you jumped in ahead of councillor Mamer, but since you,
Oh, if that's okay.
My belief was that the $70,000 was allocated as part of the Lions Park upgrade originally. Then it was decided we would put the charging stations in there.
my memory's
I'll
not,
stand corrected.
my memory's not that good, councillor.
Through you.
Yep. James.
Through Mr. Mayor, they're individual projects. Now, so the Lions Park project is standalone to this $70,000 adopted.
Yeah.
Councillor Maidment, councillor Qualman is after that.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Just one quick one. When the EV station came up with Meningie, it went to public consultation. Do we have to do that with these two? And the timeline will be scratchy to do it, won't it?
Good point.
Oh, it did. And I,
Good point.
That
We
was in
don't
the
believe
feedback
there's
from the Lions.
a regulatory reason to go to public consultation.
okay,
at this
Why did we
stage.
do it, Meningie?
Councillor Qualman,
that was part of the other part.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with councillor Peach. I have concerns about a budget adjustment, and I think the 70,000 should be reallocated to the Hunt Road job at Tarlenben.
Okay.
Mr Mayor,
You too.
I just wish to ask one question about
Mhm.
the one at Canalpin.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think the comment was made, angle parking would not be able to be angle parking on Richards Terrace.
We know it.
And looking at the map here, we're going into the, one of the verge of the road, which is grass, is that correct?
Yes.
So it's all right at Canalpin, but not form one at Meningie.
Thank you.
You know, to have a form one at Meningie, not have. Is that, you've got no expenditure there for the one at
It
Canalpin?
remains generally on the road.
Yeah.
The RAA are prepared to pay all of that cost.
Yeah.
At this
So
stage.
it's going to be bitumised, it's going to be, well, it's,
Through you, Mr. Chair, that all of the parking spaces and connecting driveways are funded by RAA for all three sites. So they're all asphalt pavement with line marking.
Yep.
The only additional request is to asphalt around the greater surrounds of the Punt Road parking bay. So,
and the same at Richards.
correct, yeah.
My next question will be, will these be rateable because they will be earning revenue?
What's the really?
And who will be paying rates on them?
Our land.
We'll have to take that on notice, councillor. That's quite a reasonable question. Given. Oh, Jesus. That'll be a very good question. That's asked.
Thank you.
Councillors, we've had a long open discussion with some questions and answers. If I'm reading the room, I would think councillors want to have a further debate around leaving the allocation for the car park that is in the budget for 70,000 at Meningie, given there's no longer any chance of a car charging station there, and also item 4, endorsing a $65,000 adjustment to seal the park, the entire area that we would remain at Punt Road, Tail and Bend. Is that roughly where the room's laying?
No.
Could we just move that,
Absolutely
could
not.
we just move that the EB sites are dealt, is that the thing that's
Yeah,
time
that-
critical?
That's, and well,
That we
that's,
can have a further discussion around,
that's
everything
exactly
else?
what I'm asking, councillor, that we endorse the process going forward on those 3 sites. That in this case, that the RAA is basically paying for all of it.
Yeah.
If you were to endorse 2,
Through you,
3,
Mr Mayor, I'd move 1.
thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow you to move 1 after you with 2, 3 and 5.
I have a
Right.
question.
So, but I'm not moving. I'm waiting for the room. Does everyone understand? If we move 2, 3 and 5, we endorse the 3 sites, but it does not involve us as an organisation spending any money at this point in time. We're really clear on that?
I have a
There's someone,
question.
you got
I
a
have
question?
I have
Yeah.
a question in relation to endorsing the Meningie one at the old CFS site, given that our acting director has indicated that it's 2, and looking at the map, I'm not convinced that if we're going to put them in, that initially it was looked at it to be a tier 1 site originally in the original discussions at the side of the Lions Park, on the southern end of the Lions Park. We're now going back to a tier 2, which doesn't seem to meet what was required initially to meet needs future. Therefore, are we going to be looking at another site somewhere else, or are we seriously going to move that with only 2 sites or without the potential to 4, subject to our acting director looking at that? I can do the maths here, but it looks to me like subject to all the road access, et cetera, we should be able to adjust that.
So the 2, 3 and 5 don't impede what you're asking for, councillor.
As long as it's clear that we should be seriously looking at it. that-
Well,
Otherwise, we're really not we're playing games with the RAA, who are telling us they want 4 in Meningie now, 2's acceptable, and we've thrown 2 more sites in to just confuse the matter.
we're doing our best to assist them find a site.
I don't doubt that. but we'll accept half
Of
half
them.
of what their recommendation
They're
was.
not gonna- I'm going to start to search for someone to move 2, 3 and 5 so for the purpose of debate, to be quite honest.
Just through, I agree with what councillor Bland just said. The RAA was very specific. This is what has to happen. We've had this proposal come forward without a conversation amongst the elected members. I'm quite uncomfortable broadly with how this has proceeded. It's, has to be here, has to be this size, urgent to get this done and approved. Oh, hang on, it's all the playing field's changed. I don't object with all three of these sites. I think that's great. But I do think the process around this has not been good.
No, I don't disagree that I would have hoped whoever's the proponent in the RAA would have dealt with South Australian Power Networks far earlier.
Mr Mayor.
But given that, are we prepared to move forward to a far more concrete arrangement around the three sites? My simple question to the elected members, councillor Arthur,
I'll move that the council in principle endorse number 2, number 3, number 5. Subject to final plans. There's still a little bit of thing to do there, I would think. So it gives us a commitment. We're not going to spend any more money that's in the budget. So we do not need any budget review.
certainly you've moved that way, councillor. I think that's fine.
Through you, Mr Mayor, then why would you accept his motion and not mine?
Because in the conversation, councillor, I felt that get a result out of this meeting, we probably needed to go down this way. I don't think it'll impede your proposed motion.
Is that your decision?
Yeah, is my decision. Yes. I know, but I have the power to work through the order of how we get a result, so trying to. There is a seconder for the motion. Councillor Corman, you're seconding Councillor Arthur's motion.
Yes, I am. Thank
2,
you.
3 and 5.
What's written?
Councillor Principal. Right, who you want to speak to it, councillor?
Yeah, I'd like to say that we had an original budget estimate for putting in the EV charging stations, which really, in my opinion, is not a service of the council to be supplying those sort of things. But as it was offered to us, we went through the budget process, we allocated $65,000 because of upgrade. It helped us to upgrade an area of ours. Unfortunately, as is happening in a lot of places, the power is not available at those sites sufficient to run a charging station. So they've come up with another site. I think the alternative here for 2, 3 and 5 is it's no extra charge to the council, not the council, to the ratepayers, let's remember that. And it gets a result that's really gets back to what it was all about in the first place, was making provision for EV stations. And where they are, well, that doesn't really matter. So otherwise we can go on for ages and ages and ages here, so.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Totally concur what Councillor Arthur just said, and the good thing about, remember, we only started out with one location, we end up now with 3, funded by the RAA, and more importantly, not requiring a budget adjustment of 65,000.
Councillor Bland.
Have, in relation to point 1, the Narung Road Tier 2, which is what's in the body of the document, which I'm assuming we're referring to. I don't believe that that is the intent, and the offer originally was for a Tier 1. And if we don't have a Tier 1 in a significantly busy town for tourism, which is part of the reason they wanted there in the first place, we have wasted an awful lot of time. We would be still, in effect, by their discussions, short by 2 charging stations. So therefore, I would like to see in one that we seriously look at the Narung Road site, old CFS station, to ensure that it will work for a Tier 1.
Councillor, do you think, given what we've heard verbally and what we've only learnt today, and that the words in principle don't assist you in that?
No, because the body of the document, Mr. Mayor, talks about Tier 2. The original discussion was Tier 1, which is what we approved. I have no problem, but if we are to meet the needs, we should be looking at a Tier 1. I'm very happy to have them, but let's get it right first time round and not say later on that we should have had
Propose an
more.
adjustment in words in 1.
Tier 1 needs to be in the motion.
Preferably or absolute?
Absolutely, in my opinion, but I leave that to other councillors.
What words would you?
Endorse the construction of an RAA there's EV charging, EV Tier 1 charging station. And it's up to our acting director to look at that opportunity and come back if that's not possible.
Want to word that?
Otherwise, we're just wasting.
So through you, Mayor, if we were to put, with the in principle there, if we put at the end of number 1, fund the project in full and council to contribute whatever to and investigate reverting to a Tier 1 arrangement. I don't think we can make them do one or the other. It will be up to RAA.
My understanding is we actually agreed to a Tier 1. We're now reverting, and yet the need was for a Tier 1. And we're now happy to accept a Tier 2. Potentially. Now, until our acting director is able to have that conversation and look at the plans effectively for road management, etc., I would still like to see it in there. Needs to come back to council if it's only going to be a Tier 2.
The words are to investigate with RAA, the, what's the word? To investigate with RAA.
To achieve a Tier
To
1.
achieve, and a Tier 1 outcome. If this is not possible, a report to council regarding the reasons why a Tier 2 option needs to be implemented or something like that.
Actually, I'll be quite happy to, if it's subject to the mover, if it actually just stopped Tier 1 after outcome, full stop.
So if that can't be achieved, are you saying, councillor, through you, Mayor, sorry, you don't want this to come back to council then?
No, I'm saying it should come back to council,
So I think we
but
need
not
to-
just with an excuse from RAA, because they had a need for 4.
through you, Mayor, I don't think the need has changed. I think just the practical issues have probably overtaken what the actual need is. And you're probably right. There was probably a time where there'll be another request to put something in. And maybe having them separated is not a bad thing anyway. I don't know if having all 4 together, it was the option that they, and I'm just guessing here, was, I don't think the need's gone away. I think that the practical application of putting the 4 in just doesn't they can't manage it at that site.
I'm not the mover, so.
Mover and seconder happy with the additional words in.
Can't read it, so.
Not take that as a yes.
Yeah, I'll take that as a yes now.
Councillor Coleman, are you happy with that additions in point one around?
Yeah, just managed to read it. Thank you. I'm happy.
You and me too.
Amateur.
We're still in debate, as last time I remembered. Anyone else wish to join the debate? No one else. I'm going to go back to you, councillor Arthur, to close.
Give us to close the debate, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So everyone's clear. Moved by councillor Arthur, second by councillor Qualman. 3 points as listed there. Is everyone, it's basically to endorse the RAAs or them building. No cost to us as the council. That's what that's endorsing. Everyone's clear? Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Councillor O'Hara. My broad question, councillors, is do we need to have a discussion at all because it's in the budget?
Already been passed.
So I'm looking at you. You really want to discuss this again because it is actually in the budget.
Mr Mayor, I make a point of order there. It's not in the budget. It is in the budget for a car park with an EV charging station. It was not a standalone car park. And it was not even talked about until the RIA come along with their offers of these
That is
EVs.
incorrect.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's not correct.
That is
So I
incorrect.
talked about it last time, I was,
That's,
so it has
that's
been.
last time ago.
And I've spoken about it since I've been in council this time.
It is incorrect.
Right. So, councillors, you may be appreciating my head starting to hurt.
I'll give you 2 Panadol.
Those are my-
I'm trying to determine whether I need to take a motion around this at all.
Mr. Mayor,
Mhm.
the hill I'm going to die on tonight is I don't want to see any further expenditure because this, I take the point of councillor Bland O'Hara and I also take councillor Arthur's. In my mind, the urgency to do this and why we adopted it at the time was due to the EVs, not taking away the fact that it's been brought forward beforehand. Can I suggest that I don't want to see any further expenditure this year, given our budget situation. I'd be quite comfortable to support item 1 with the addendum that we prioritise the ceiling of the other site in the next financial year. Something along those lines, but I don't want to see this go to $140,000 of expenditure
I understand what you're
when
saying.
it just keeps moving. Yeah.
Councillor, lead the council. If councillor O'Hara gives, since I have still left him with the floor on this, was to move that point 1 and that Hunt Road car park be listed for consideration in the 24-25 budget. That's what you're saying to me, I think. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting. I just don't want to see this go 140 and then have a change again potentially. Like this just keeps moving a bit too quick.
I appreciate your point. Councillor O'Hara,
I agree.
understand where
I
councillor
agree
Beach
with
is.
what
is
councillor Beach is saying.
Councillor Maidment
I'm
said the same.
I'm all for doing the Tailem Bend
Yeah.
one in next year's budget.
So,
But
yeah,
the 70,000 for the Meningie one has been passed.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that money taken and all of a sudden bobbed up, we've got to do one at Tailem Bend. Well, yeah, sure, we'll do the one at Tailem Bend in good time.
right. So you would be happy to move that motion. 0023, I can see on the screen, utilising council's portion of the adopted budget. And you would be happy with the second point on what the word put, that council put the completion of a car park at Hunt Road, Tailem Bend on the 24-25 budget.
Sure,
Right. Can we
For
word that in,
consideration.
more than that.
please? You want it as one motion?
Sorry,
You want that as one motion?
2 dot points.
2 dot points. 2 dot points of that one. Fine, we get-
I'm happy to support them.
Yeah, so it's 2 dot points, but it's one motion, please. So councillor, the intent of this, councillors, and intention of this motion, and I'm taking it as being moved by councillor O'Hara, is that we stay with what we were intended to do for a car park, regardless of as an EV or not. Adjacent to Lions Park and Meningie, and that we endorse put on the budget for 24-25 the finishing of the car park on the top of the, what I call the top of the hill at Tailem Bend, Punt Road, or it's Punt Road, isn't it, Tailem Bend? Councillor Maidman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a query with that recommendation on there now.
Mhm.
It says a proposed car park to the Meningie Council, which incorporated the RAA. Now, we're not doing that, correct?
Excluding the RAAC.
Exactly.
There's the motion
So
says.
what's, as part of the Lions Park, money allocated towards that was a car park? There was, wasn't there? Sure there
Not
was.
from that particular motion, which the balance in the next discussion is in relation to a carry forward, actually, in terms of a budgetary sense. In the main, sorry, councillor Bland. Are you seconding councillor O'Hara's motion?
I will second it and I'll speak.
You'll speak?
Thank you. And that is that, just for clarification, if one looks at what was happening in Lions Park, that the directors have done a lot and staff done a lot of work on, the connection for disability from that car park that is now off the main highway is essential, given the pathing, et cetera, that has been put in there. So while they were 2 different projects, they actually have been married together by the shelters that are now being into the park, allowing disability access. So I support this motion, of course.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to enter the debate?
Just one more question, Mayor,
Yes.
if I may.
Question.
Can we move these separately?
This stage, I'm taking councillor O'Hara as moving them together,
Okay.
unless he wants them separated, but I'm taking as he moved them together.
I'd actually like them separated, I think,
Oh, right.
And I agree. I'm okay with that. It's
but I'm okay with them together if you want to do it.
Well, you're the mover.
Maidman,
All right,
Coming back to you every time, dear.
Right, together.
Together. So councillors, the mover has said they are together.
Can I ask a question?
Councillor, those, sorry, can I just check those words reflect what you want, councillor O'Hara?
Yep. I'm happy with that.
Okay, councillors. Continue with your debate. Councillor Peach.
Can I ask a question regarding the site at Meningie? I noticed in the report around the playground, there was a number of feedback items about removing the laundry. Is that forming part of any considerations at this
Not yet.
stage? No.
While some people commented that we don't need to use it, it probably isn't some level of use by some groups at this stage. And it would probably involve a doubling or trebling on the straight square metre areas compared to the car park here now at this stage. But no, I would think we need to be actually quite considerate around removing the so-called laundry, to be quite honest.
Consider it.
Yes, consider
Very
it as in a
useful, yeah.
public consultation.
Quite a useful building.
That-
It needs to be public. I agree.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not a fait accompli that should be removed, councillor, at all. But the car park design for that area immediately adjacent to the park isn't affected by that building. Mover and a seconder, I've got it moved and seconded. Who else wishes to discuss this?
So I can support
Okay.
item 1 because it is just the extra money we're going to spend. The original motion was put because of the EV park. Unfortunately, the EV park can't be put there because of lack of power services. But all this is really, motions 1 and 2, all they are doing is putting an extra $65,000 expenditure on the budget for this year. So
Next year,
budget
councillor.
adjustment.
The second one is to propose it for next. It's proposing it for next year. It has to go through a lot.
You want to hold one back here that has 5 times more traffic than
Well, I don't
one on the Meningie Road.
I don't know. Not my question. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor O'Hara, you get to close this one.
Oh, close.
Councillor Bland was always the seconder. Sorry. Councillor Bland was always the seconder. Councillors, I hope we're clear. And I hope as soon as this motion is either lost or won, we're going to have a 10-minute break. I'm ready to put the motion. All those in favour? You have a great mob. Those against? So councillors Peach, O'Hara and Bland voted for the motion. Councillors Arthur, Maidman and Qualman voted against the motion. So Mayor gets, yes, for the reasons that, for me, that it is in this year's budget already, I'm going to vote for the motion. I declare the motion carried. Can we have a 10-minute break, please? And councillors, I'm sorry if you've observed, my head's starting to, I'm looking at Councillor Arthur to be ready, actually. Thank you, everyone. We return just after sorting out that technical difficulty. 2, item 10. Menindee Lions Park Jubilee refurbishment. Recommendation is that council endorse the design of the Menindee Lions Park Jubilee Park shelter and outdoor gym equipment upgrade and proceed to construction. Councillors, I understand this is all within the budget. Carried forward, or some are, so all carried forward. Someone prepared to move, Councillor Bland. As is, thank you. You're a seconder, Councillor O'Hara, thank you. Want to speak to it, Councillor Bland?
No, I think it meets with pretty much everything that we discussed. It was like a very good public consultation, lots of comments. Some of those probably could be noted for the future, but at this point, I think we need to get it done.
Thank you. Councillor O'Hara?
No, so.
Any other councillor? Councillor Pooch?
A question from the public consultation through Mr. Mayor. What has been changed about the design at this point in time?
James, you.
Yeah. Prior to public consultation, the plans that exist now didn't exist. They were a fallout from the consultation. So the consultation was really high level. This is what shelters will look like. This is what the furniture will look like. From the feedback given, then I created the plans with the DDA compliant access. Waited within the park. None of that was.
Do you, Mayor? Just to add to that, the process has almost been a little bit backwards in a sense of what you would normally do, because the Lions and the Rotary there have a strong Lions have a strong connection to the park. Wrong code, don't tell Mr. Coleman that. So we went to consult with them prior to, as James said, drawing up any plans. So what the plans reflect is really that first stage of consultation, rather than drawing the plans and then talking about it.
Anyone else? Five more seconds, councillor.
Okay, so sorry, the shelters, what's the proposal at the moment there regarding compared to the initial concept? Noting that there's quite a bit of public feedback about the size increase and the type of shelter.
Yep, so the shelters are proposed to be the terrain style Capricorn shelters, which we've procured and developed and delivered, and many other outfits. So Falcon, Wellington East, Bullshed Reserve in Menindee, standard style shelter we've been dealing with. A lot of the consultation was around the we've opted to move on the failing wind direction. That was prior to, post community consultation.
And the size of the shelters?
Previous amount, I can't comment on what they were prior to the consultation. Apologies for that. They are 8x4 now.
Any other questions? There be not, councillor Bland, you'll close.
I'll close. I'm looking forward to seeing it happen.
Thank you. Motion is as it reads in the agenda. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Number 11. Information Security Policy Review. Councillors? Recommendation, can someone move that, please? Or Abe something, please? Councillor Qualman, thank you. Councillor O'Hara is the seconder. Is there any discussion or debate required over that policy attachment?
Close debate.
Close debate. Thank you, councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 12, electronic communications policy review. Recommendation there, councillors. We adopt the electronic communications policy as amended. Councillor Bland is the mover. You're a seconder. Councillor Bowman, thank you. Councillor Bland, you want to speak?
No, it's just one of those spaces we have to keep a very close eye on.
Thank you. Bowman,
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
any other councillors? There being no more, put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 13, motor vehicle policy review. Someone wish to move that recommendation, please? Don't rush me. I do need someone to move something at some point. Councillor Arthur, would you like to move?
Just
Or
like
I-
to make a comment.
You
before
can
we move
ask
that.
a question.
How long since it's been reviewed? The actual, like the recipients of this thing, because when you look at some of these agreements, for example, they were made when people actually lived around the area. Now, some of them are 100 k's away. They're travelling back and forward in a council vehicle. Now, the latest,
Be careful here, councillor.
well,
Careful.
Mr Mayor, the latest taxation department says it's 92 cents. So if you're doing 200 a day, it soon adds up.
Been reviewed. The last time this was formally adopted was 2020.
2020, so it really
Okay.
does. Yeah.
Is your broad question about how many employees this relates to, or is your broad question about when we last reviewed?
Well, in the it says, like that, it's subject to perusal, whether their job may change, their job description may have changed, it may have got worse, it may have got better. It just, but he may be doing, he or she may be doing more things or less things. So it really does need to be looked at, and, I would have thought it'd be one thing that would be an annual revision.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the figures, there's quite a considerable amount of money there.
Yeah, so I don't disagree, councillor, that we should have been reviewed more often. I don't disagree with that. Second part is buried in this document is who can be provided a car or a vehicle by council and who isn't. And as you know, our three executives are not provided with a car in this council.
No.
Part of their package. So anyway, are you prepared to move the motion? My question.
I can't move that we adopt policy.
I'm really trying. Sorry, I'm moving the meeting. Councillor Arthur's moved it as amended, the recommendation, councillor. Is there someone else, please? Otherwise, Councillor Bland, your hand is,
Yep, I'll move it.
thank you. You're seconding it, actually. Councillor Arthur, do you want to go on and debate this or lead debate? Finish or
I think
close?
we've done enough debating so far this evening. I want to get home before midnight before I turn into a pumpkin.
And I'm well aware we do like to get home in reasonable time. Given the sun's down, any, councillor Bland, you wish to say any more?
No, as long as we continue a cycle review all the time, keep it regular.
Councillor Qualman?
I concur with councillor Bland, and just I have concerns like everybody with fuel prices and everything, and that accurate logging and use of the vehicles is straight down the line as per the policy. This is not about who gets what, but mainly about how we maintain the vehicles when you've been allotted one. And I'm glad to see there is a policy out on that, but I still have concerns though that maybe we've got too many cars. I'm probably not supposed to say that. Thank you.
It's all right, you just said it.
Had to get that in.
Councillor Peach is the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will apologise. I did miss this one. I saw the other two policies, but did miss this one when it was sent out. Just a couple of queries and probably next review, but drivers being required to do a pre-start inspection prior to commencing their journeys. Is the appropriate place to be?
Chair. And that's a fairly simple process that's embedded in daily practices. This policy, I don't know, there's nowhere else that specifically states that in any policy we have for staff. I think it's appropriate.
My only suggestion would be next time there's a vehicle handbook that could be for practical matters. Things like having to refuel before when you hit half a tank, things like that. It's just a bit, we're in a council area that's 100 and something kilometres long. Seems a bit. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Looking at councillor O'Hara, I thought he wanted to speak, but he's no. Okay,
He's hoping I stop, I think.
there's no one else wishes to speak. Councillor Arthur will close.
I'll close the debate.
So the motion is, as it is in the agenda, that we'd adopt the motor vehicle policy as amended. Councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 14, Roads and Infrastructure Committee minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of September, which was last week, I think. Council received the minutes of the meeting. Someone move that way. Councillor Maidment, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Hara, is there any debate? Shouldn't be, but anyway, there may be. There is none.
Close.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Move on to 11.1, Office of the Chief Executive Officer's Information Report, councillors. Number 1. Or can someone move we receive and note the report, please? Sorry. Councillor Qualman. Maidment. Any discussion, any questions, please? Oh, about, we can take them in a second. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Is there any questions or comments in the information report, councillors? Otherwise, I'll move on.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Qualman.
just a comment. I just thought the surprise visit, so-called, of our Excellency the Governor went down quite well, and people were quite impressed with the professionalism and friendly openness. I thought that was quite a good day, enjoyed by all.
We're nearly 2 days. She had to leave at 1:15 from Menangi. Menangi Area School put on an excellent in their ex-science area performance. Usually a couple of lead steers did the leading. But no, I think she enjoyed herself, and I think everyone was involved in particular, and I just might particularly thank Glenn and Tracy Hill, who took us on a tour, Governor, her driver and her assistant, and the CEO and me across to the other side of the Coorong from Long Point.
I see a lovely photo in here.
Yes. There you go. And,
Of the hills.
we did
and
see
the
a couple
government.
of fur seals. Okay, there's no more in that one. We move on to number 2, Corporate Community Information Report. There's a recommendation there, councillor. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Laws, Councillor Maidment, and I'm going to pick one of you in a minute. O'Hara. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Is there any questions for the director? Councillor Coleman, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 85, and I know probably can't go into this too much, but I'm going to ask it anyhow. Of concern, there's 2 occurrences of aggressive and abusive customers impacting council staff. Can someone enlighten a bit more, or we don't go there?
Through the chair,
Certainly.
I think we're seeing this throughout society, people on edge, and every day you're seeing whether a bus driver or someone behind the counter at the shop having some abuse. Now, we just don't tolerate it, and it's important that we capture these incidences so that so a few things can happen. Of course, the welfare of staff is paramount, so we make sure they're okay.
Yep.
We then follow up in the next few days because, there can be a lag effect. So we make sure right through that our staff are okay. If it's someone who hasn't experienced that before, that can be quite disturbing. So one of our policies is to make sure that's right up to Bridget's level, that's known, and you'll have people like Bridget, myself, James, making sure that we touch base with the affected staff member. And the other side of it, though, is that we have had obviously then someone who has been has had a problem. We obviously do want to know that. We want to know what's the nature of their grievance. Can we get through to them and help them? So we don't ignore that situation, but we don't tolerate that. Make that clear.
Thank you for answering that sensitive question.
Just, if it's appropriate, we'll also refer to SAPOL.
Else, councillors? Councillor Peach?
Section 41 committee action list, noting quite a lot of progress there, particularly around the signage. Am I reading that correctly, that that's now underway?
Signage in relation to?
There's a number of items that have been sitting on there for a while without action, waiting for the streetscapes, but it looks like a number of them have been.
You may, if it's relating to the Canalpin sign, I was down there the other day and I said, can we please just get a new sign?
Possibly. Any other questions, councillors? There's none. I move on to number 3. Can someone read the recommendation of the infrastructure and assets information report? Councillor Quam, are you moving?
Thank you.
You'll have a question, or?
Yes, I do.
In a minute, I'll get a seconder. Councillor Peach is the seconder. Councillor Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 85, photograph. New door handles installed at Tailem Bend. Oh, so some got ripped off, or they bad standard, or not up to standard?
There's councillor, but I've seen the photo. 95. Thank you.
That was damaged.
Oh, okay. I just thought it might have been through you, Mr. Mayor, that you had to replace all of them. It was just one door handle.
There was, yeah, they were all replaced. There was damage.
Oh, okay.
The damage or just got up and off?
Hard to say categorically, but yeah, we've changed the style, so they were like a lever action prior. Now, the lever style was being misused or wasn't.
Okay, thank you. While I made comment on something positive, we see a lot of patronage of our new toilets and good feedback. So
A lot of people marching there at great speed.
yeah, you do. Thank you.
Is there anyone else with questions in the information report, councillors? Councillor Maidment, yes.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Just how, if we have a timeline on roughly how long the service road at Ampol will take?
James, yes.
Construction program is about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks.
The constructing contractor said the digging there is hard.
No kidding.
That's O'Hara.
Can I just ask you, 488 hours of mowing parks, reserves and roadsides. How many more hours do you estimate we need for that job to be done properly? Way behind around Meningie in particular.
Through you, Mayor, can we take that question on notice and we'll do some, rather than off the top of our head? We've probably all got a view about what that might be, but we might take it on notice.
Well, that a new mower is, tractor mower is, that's not holding up the present year, I don't think, but there is a new one that's made appear late this year, early next year. Is that right? When I read a report?
Yes.
Yep, which may assist that, but as you know, councillor, in that good area of Menangie, the grass grows easily.
Very noticeable at the moment. though.
I guess the follow-up question from that. Full teams, or are some staff out on injury?
For you, there was recruitment that happened down there. There were some staff who were out on leave. And I'm not sure, councillor, I'm looking at the director, did anybody come back during the 2 weeks I was away?
I would expect labour hours import down there to increase. Now that they're full.
And just one thing I noticed last week was the boys, and I think they do a pretty good job really, I'm not complaining really, but they went down past my place down to, well, to Hunter Park and obviously mowed Hunter Park. But why didn't you just have the blades going on the way down? Then they came back and did the area between Hunter Park and my place. But if they would have had a, one strip done on the way down instead of just driving there. I mean, they drove on the grass down there.
We'll take that on.
Truck drivers are worth backload.
Any other questions in the information report, please? I don't believe I've put this motion, to be quite honest. You did.
You did.
We haven't put it, I've got tick on one of my sheets and not on the other. There you go. Oh, everyone happy?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll put the motion again just to make sure. All those in favour? Sorry, it's getting long. Are those against? It's carried unanimously. Sorry. I move on to item 12.1, questions with notice. Councillor Peach. Why is my chair? It says Councillor Peach on my thing, but it's not. Councillor Arthur. Councillor Arthur's first question has an answer there. Yes. Councillor, and you have a follow-up, I think, in with question, motion with notice on around its subjects. Anything to add, councillor?
No, I think that's
All right.
probably the most phone calls I've ever had in my life about anything council. And I didn't know anything about it because when I come Tuesday, I didn't, as you know, I wasn't at the workshop. Come down the back way normally, so I didn't even know they'd been working out there. But I definitely did by the time I put my phone back on. And the question was simply because, let's face it, the ratepayers know it's not our property. And the ratepayers know that our gangs have been brought in from everywhere to do it. So I asked the question on their behalf.
Righto. Next one. Councillor Roundtree has asked, not here today, as you know. And there's an explanation there. Everyone's happy with that? Third one is another one from Councillor Roundtree. There's also a response. Has anyone got any questions around that response? Okay. Taken as they are. 12.2, questions without notice. Councillor Qualman, then O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine concerns the proposed Granite Road stormwater project. I just see we just received some information about what's actually going to transpire in the next couple of weeks or so. I was under the intent or belief that the stormwater pipe would run continuously parallel on the eastern side of Granite Road down to the pit or the hole for the bore, rather than go through the existing pit. Good, that's my first part of the question. Could I have that answered, please? And I've got another one.
I know originally, councillor, that was sort of our intention, or I wouldn't say our direction as councillors, but we felt that was best. But I think, I'll paraphrase for the acting director, I think the emergence of a liner that can go in there that can keep the water in the present drain spot may achieve exactly the same result. James, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So essentially, we've got a more cost-effective solution to the issue. Solve our issue. We'll retain the water within the pipe, stop it underlying pavement, stop road deformation. Yeah, this is a more cost-effective solution.
Part two of my question. When we did our little get together with the local residents and she, through the chair, James was there and then done an informal report on and advising what the problems were with this so-called wet sump. And it was told that it was not put down deep enough. Will it now then, if it's sealed, be still deep enough to compensate against heavy vehicles and not letting the pavement move around? Because that's my concern, that we're using an existing pipeline and even though it's going to be sealed and watertight, we hope, is it deep enough?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the depth of the culvert is not so much of the issue as the type of culvert that it is. So they leak lying pavement, which then affects the strength of that pavement and the road moves. So the depth below the water and the supersaturation of that soil, which bubble, that road base, which enables it to lose its strength. So by keeping the water within the pipe, stop it from leaking out, solve the issue of structural failures of the pavement.
And I assume then, because we've already been seeing some of this sealing works happening with our CWMS and that seems to be working fine. So let's hope it does a job. If it seals, so we shouldn't have any pavement issues, and timeline will be completed in about 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Thank you.
Councillor O'Hara, I think.
It's through you, Mr. Mayor, to the acting director. In front of the post office at Meningie, there's a real bad area that's very untidy. And it's pretty dangerous actually for some of the older people that are trying to get into the post office. Now, I had spoke to the past director of infrastructure about using the paving bricks that were left over from the fuel depot to pave that area, which would keep it in line with all the rest of the paving around town. Today, I saw the boys were shifting those paving bricks. Can you tell me what they're doing with them?
This is the footpath, or the footpath that's not paved in front of the post office at Meningie we're talking
Yes.
No, it's not.
So
about. The acting director will respond.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the existing footpath is subpar in its current sort of format, I suppose, and it's being considered for renewal this financial year. I can't guarantee that it's going to be done because we haven't assessed all the footpaths within the district to assess the priority of it, but it's certainly a candidate for renewal, and we will look to exercise paving it to liken to the rest of Main Street. The other point beyond that is the consideration of extending that footpath to the north would be consideration under our footpath expansion, which is also coming to council later on.
North or south?
And what's happened to those pavers?
I was going to say north's fine, south is terrible.
Apologies.
It's a hill full of rubbish.
What's happened to the pavers?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will find that out.
Could I just follow up with that question then? Is that they're the same pavers that we're using in Tailem Bend and Meningie and elsewhere, that if we've got excess due to a project, we should really be making sure we hang on to them, because matching them has always been a bit of a problem. So if they're in good condition, we should be utilising them and keeping them.
Certainly. Okay,
So can we get a feedback?
we'll have to take it on notice though.
Just wondering where things are at with the disposal of the pelican sculpture and that process at the moment.
Oh, through you,
Given that she's
Mayor,
back from only,
I will take that on notice. I know that we went out to see if there was any interest in it. And I know that one group has come back, but anybody else will take that on notice.
this is how we're going. Any other questions without notice? Because there needs to be more formal perhaps. Okay, I'm going to move on. Motion with notice, councillor Arthur, you've got a motion
I'd like to move that way.
Move the motion as it moves. That is, that when council has finalised the design and costings to the proposed upgrade of a portion of the Princess Highway through Tailem Bend and the annual cost to maintain the area, the proposition be put to ratepayers by process of public consultation, the public consultation proving no less than 4 weeks. Councillor, you're referring, and I'm paraphrasing now, to the medium strip here, aren't you?
Of course,
Thank you. You're moving that way.
move that way.
Is there a seconder? I'll ask for a seconder.
Mr Mayor.
It's all right. Now I've found you.
Excellent.
I just couldn't see you initially, sorry. Councillor Peach is the seconder. Councillor Arthur.
This motion is because of the fact that obviously elected members, when we were talking about this before, were quite happy for the ratepayers of this area to borrow $900,000, if that's what was put to us before, to upgrade and then maintain a portion of the Meridian Strip through the Princess Highway, which has nothing whatsoever to do with council. It is owned and controlled by DIT. And for council to go to a ratepayer and ask them to upgrade that is just, I just can't believe we would even contemplate that situation. As I said before, the amount of feedback I had regarding the work that was done before and the fact that it was all our staff doing it, and the ratepayers know it's not our property or our work to do it. And it always comes up, I suppose, to why was it done then, in particular, when it's been looking shabby for many, many, many months. And of course, because the V8 races was on, that was the automatic assumption of the ratepayers, even though it was because the government was coming down. But I just believe that the public and the CEO's answer there, where it says could go to public consultation, is against my motion. So that is my motion. That I don't believe that the ratepayers, and it is the ratepayers, should be having to pay for something that is not their property. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peach, you want to speak as the seconder?
I have a question, if I may. Regarding the funding proposal for this, the $900,000, does that include ongoing funding to maintain? And is any of this money? Some clarity around the relationship between us working on its place, given it's not a council road, in dealing with that.
So the proposal we're developing around this is for capital, not for ongoing maintenance. Second point.
Would there be some sort of arrangement with DIT over this?
Well, I would hope so, because the response from previously is we'll sort of get to it if we want to, isn't it? So in terms of come back to our image, our town, our biggest town, it's going to be it's up to me sort of process, and I take the deputy mayor's position. Really, that you know, it could be seen as an ongoing cost. Councillors did see the process of whose responsibility roads are in terms of their junctions with from DIT in the workshop a week or so ago from James, and it's quite interesting to read how we as council were considering effectively upgrading 13 heavy junctions of roads across the district, where a highway joined us. And if I suppose reading the purest sense of those junctions, they were basically the department's problem in almost each case. So at this stage, where the state has considered that we can still access this $900,000, the capital payment is no longer really we're pursuing for the heavy vehicle intersections for this project. They haven't indicated, and I'm looking at the acting director, that that money would be available for almost any other project.
They haven't.
Given it. Enos, any other? James, do you want to add any further?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So the presentation that I provided last week at the Roads and Infrastructure Committee, so a section 26 clearance would be given from DIT to council to provide council with the authority to maintain and operate and upgrade that median island. So that would be an amendment to the section 26 Highways Act, which is as I suppose you would say within DIT, in terms of that's the mechanism to hand the maintenance responsibility to council. As far as LGIPP goes, with our conversations with them, they have shown an appetite to pursue it, but nothing formally has come back to say that they're willing to redirect the funding to this project yet. That answers.
Any other questions?
Amendment. Thank you, Mayor. Just through you to Councillor Arthur, I just wanted to be.
Just to me.
Oh, sorry. I'll get used to it eventually. Well, my question then is just to clarify Councillor Arthur's motion is to actually put to public consultation any costings and designs with that corridor. That's basically what your motion is, because I think we're getting off track.
My motion really revolves around asking the ratepayer if they are prepared to take on now $500,000 of debt.
Councillor,
on
no.
behalf
No.
of-
Stop, Councillor Arthur. This is around the annual cost to maintain this area.
And the annual cost.
Cost to maintain this area, the proposition we put to ratepayers. I'm just keep it tight, please.
Beg your pardon, it's
So the motion.
finalise the design and costings for the proposed upgrade
Mhm.
of the portion of the Princess Highway through Taylor Bend and the annual cost to maintain this area. There's two questions there.
Yes, but the essence is it's to go to public consultation on those costs. That's what your motion is asking, correct?
Well, if you. as a
Just so I
ratepayer
know. Yep.
Dollars worth
Yep.
of government debt.
Yeah. That was what I
Thank
thought you were
Thank
asking.
Mayor.
but I
Okay.
got off track.
So the mover and the second have spoken, so I'm just interested in anyone else's questions or debate.
Oh,
Councillor O'Hara.
I would say, I think, I know it's a lot of money, but it's our town. They're not doing it. We've got to take some pride in our town, whether it was done for the V8 races or the governor coming. Either way, it was us taking pride in presentation of Taylor Bend. And that's what it's all about. And I'm sure 9 out of 10 of the ratepayers would feel the same way.
Anyone else wish to enter the debate?
Maybe just be clear on the 900,000, that if we are not successful, where do we sit then? Am I misreading this?
That's
or-
what you may remember you had a briefing on this just this afternoon, councillors, and we set out where the funding and how it all would all look. And so that is this project here that Councillor Arthur's.
So I guess my point is that that's sitting there subject to receiving some dollars from elsewhere.
So the 900,000 has been earmarked and we've already been given that, but for the heavy vehicle intersections. That didn't eventuate. So we went back to the state to said, we would like to use this 900,000 in a different way. They're very keen on partnerships, and this one is a partnership with the state because it's state money that, and as James indicated, we haven't been told yes or no, but we don't get a sense that they're unreceptive to any change. We're just waiting for them to, and we think it's sitting on the minister's desk.
So and
Yes, well, we have, there's a capital construction, and remember the questions this afternoon at the briefing were, do we capitalise those costs? And the answer is yes. And then there would be an ongoing budget in the operational sense to maintain it, as we do with all our
Just
other
wanted
parks
to-
and gardens.
Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to comment that I'd received comments and phone calls, and most of them were quite positive, and people were very impressed to see the change in the presentation when you come into the town. And some realised it's dipped and some didn't, and just said, well done, council. It was good to hear. And it's good to see a job well done. Place looks tidy. Welcome to Tarlan Bend.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Moment, you don't need to speak if you don't want to.
I'm just confused that we're talking about, the motion is that any design costings and annual costs be put to the ratepayers by public consultation for no less than 4 weeks, which I agree with, by the way. I'm happy to support the motion, but we are getting off track talking about 900,000 here, 500,000 here, because we're not sure that's what the costings will be. But the motion, as I understand it, is whether you support it or not, this is the motion, is the designings and costs go to public consultation.
Yes.
Is that right, or am I missing something?
Yeah, I'm on rereading the motion, I think. Okay, anyone else?
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to make the comment. I didn't receive any bad reports about the work that was being done. In fact, there was many reports over the preceding 3 to 4 months about how it looked like an outback town with what wasn't being done, and they know it is not council's responsibility, but the ratepayers know it's not council's responsibility, but the person who drives through as a tourist or whatever, they don't know, and so the council probably gets a kick in the butt. But this motion is not about what's been done, about what's being proposed.
Mhm.
The proposal is that you, the ratepayer, borrow $500,000 now.
Councillor, I'm going to just stop you here. There is
No,
nowhere
at this stage.
nowhere there's that
It's not
proposal.
an emotion.
Go on though.
Well, where's the
No,
$500,000?
there's nowhere in any document we have proposed that.
There will be a report to council that there may be a capital expenditure to go in the 24-25 budget. James, have I got that right?
Okay, right. The motion is as it reads. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? So that's carried, with councillor O'Hara voting against it, actually. And all the other councillors, Arthur, Bland, Bowman, Maidman, each voting for it. So it's not carried unanimously, but it's carried. Thank you, councillors. Where am I up to? Motions without numbers. Just give me a second, please. Okay, motions without notice, item 13.2. There is none. Minute action list, councillors, item 14. Councillor Peach.
Just like to note 121-23 is missing, which was the providing update to elected members on elected member CRMs.
So you get a way to do that. That's work in progress. We'll put it back in. I don't know what's not there.
Anything else? Okay, I consider that all done. For those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to move into confidence and the live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting. We'll stop the recording.